Okay, so you've finally got the weapon you want to try out. Maybe you've just unlocked it like the Bruin MK9, the Grau, or the Rytec. You want to run the best class setup you possibly can, right? But now you've got to do a load of leveling up on these weapons to get them to a point where you can run your desired attachments and in some cases actually make the weapon playable. Well, leveling up these weapons without multiplayer isn't exactly quick. And speaking as someone who has both multiplayer and Warzone, but spends most of the time on Warzone, I've picked up a few great ways to increase the leveling up speed to almost multiplayer levels. Except shipment of course, because that's just a manic torture chamber of XP. So straight away, you're going to be wanting to play Plunder. It makes sense that to level up your desired weapon in the fastest way, you play a game mode where you spawn in with it, rather than just scrambling around in Battle Royale trying to get it. Especially if the weapon isn't quite ready and it's not at the peak of its powers yet. Oh, and you can just keep respawning if you die to have another crack. Ideally, you want to head in with a squad of people, all wanting to do the same thing and rank up their weapons, as this means you can collectively work together. If you're not with a squad, I'd actually recommend not filling the team, as they can kind of go off and hinder the objectives you're trying to do. Before you get into the actual match, you have the pre-game lobby, where everyone is smashing each other in the face repeatedly. Well, these kills count towards weapon XP, so you want to choose the weapon you want to rank up. Ideally, you want to put this weapon as your first class slot, because the game automatically spawns you in with class 1. Then you just absolutely sweat some kills whilst other people are sipping on their tea and pondering whether snook holes will reopen in Wales. Okay, so in the actual Plunder matches, you of course will get weapon XP for each kill you get with your weapon. This much is obvious, so if you have the chance, by all means go to town on people. And actually, you get the weapon XP by downing people with perhaps a weapon you already have set up the way you want, but then finishing them off with the weapon you want to rank up. Also a good thing to note is that headshots actually give out way more XP, so if you have the chance, it's bullets to the brain, guys. But for a much easier route to weapon XP, we've got to look towards completing contracts. So which contract is best for weapon XP? Well, the bounty contracts give out the most weapon XP with 750 per bounty completed, but of course, this isn't that easy to complete consistently, and because you can't pursue more than one contract at a time, it can really limit the amount of total weapon XP you get per game if you don't complete them quickly. So next we have the scavenger contract. These give out 500 weapon XP upon completion, so slightly less than the bounty, but are much more reliable to complete. In addition, they really give out a lot of cash and can propel you towards actually, winning the game if that's something you're interested in doing. The downside is, because they are great contracts that actually help you in the game, they're highly contested contracts, so they're not always that easy to pick up or even sometimes complete. Even worse is that all the boxes seem to be quite far away on Plunder compared to Battle Royale, so it can take quite a while to complete too. Next up, we have recon contracts. Now these won't be as highly contested as scavenger contracts, since the cash payout isn't as high, as you don't have a guaranteed 3 loot chests to open with the bonus at the end. And of course there's no gas and ever closing circles, so you don't gain the best bit of doing a recon contract, which is seeing where the next circle will be. That's good news for us though, since we can pick them up without much hassle. They also give out 500 weapon XP per completion, just like the scavengers. This is again less than the bounty contract XP, but they're much easier to complete. Even if you die, you can just spawn back in and try and complete it again. Now finally, there are supply run contracts. Again, these offer 500 weapon XP. These are the more recent addition of contracts in the game, so I'm just going to briefly mention how you complete them. You have to simply go to a buy station, which is usually pretty far away. The good thing is though, you don't actually have to stop and interact with it, you can just fly by on a vehicle if you like, if you're in the area and say it's kicking off and you don't fancy having a browse at the shop. The downside to these contracts are that the shops are usually very far away, but if you plan it well and use vehicles, then these contracts are actually great. And the time it takes to drive over and complete the contract is kind of negated by the contract being completed upon arrival. I mean, the recon capture areas are much closer to the contracts you pick up, but you do have to stand around and capture the area first. My advice would be to focus on the recon and supply run contracts throughout the whole game of Plunder and basically ignore the cash grab for the win. Ideally, you would get a chopper or at least a vehicle and just keep completing these contracts one after another until the game ends. Because it's so much easier with vehicles, I actually recommend putting on the trophy system as your field upgrade and throwing this on your vehicles to avoid being absolutely blown to bits every few minutes by RPGs. Now when you complete any of these contracts, make sure you've got the weapon that you want to rank up equipped, as only this weapon gets the XP, not your unequipped weapon. Now a further XP boost can occur on Plunder when the game mode goes into overtime. During this period, everything in the game is on a 1.5 times multiplier, including your weapon XP. So if you hit up a recon contract during this period of the game, you're going to get 750 weapon XP instead of the 500 when you complete it. Now on the note of XP multipliers, all of this can be hurried along with double weapon XP tokens, which I just recommend using sooner rather than later. In my experience, I end up saving them up and never actually using them. Be warned though, the time on these tokens goes down in the lobby too, so only enable them when you're jumping straight into a game. Well, that's everything I've got for this video. I hope it helps at least some of you out towards getting your weapons to a place you're happy with. If you found the video helpful, please give it a like, it really does help me out. And why not consider subscribing? I'd love it, and there's many more Call of Duty videos where that came from. Bye for now.